This is Sheriff Spotlight with the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office, highlighting the office and deputies dedicated to providing law enforcement services and maintaining the trust and support of Rockingham County citizens, all while keeping neighborhoods and communities safe.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Sheriff Spotlight with the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office here in beautiful Windworth, North Carolina. This is our June 2020 edition of our podcast. I'm your host for today's show, Sergeant Kevin Southard, Public Information Officer for the Sheriff's Office. And in the studio with me today is Sheriff Sam Page.
Good morning. Good morning.
We've got a lot to talk about. Let's dive right in. I think what is on the forefront of every news broadcast now is George Floyd, the tragic death of George Floyd, the ramifications of that, and what are your thoughts?
And actions from the officers up in Minneapolis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I know you've been very vocal in condemning those actions, but tell us exactly what your stance is on all of this.
Well, I'd like to take you back just a little bit further. You know, a few weeks ago, I was watching TV, and it was a video clip from somebody's personal camera system, and basically showed an arrest of a subject that had been, I think, passing a counterfeit $20 bill or something like that. A crime, a criminal offense.
Right.
And then I started looking at some of the additional attached video and stuff like this. And I know everybody, we look at the video, the body cams, we look at all kinds of stuff. And our deputies are on body cameras also,
right.
So we're constantly evaluating what we do. But on this particular case in Minneapolis, I watched where during the arrest process, the subject was taken out of a vehicle, suspect. He was transported, sat down beside a wall, and it looked like the officer was basically getting some basic information from
right.
Everything looked like
pretty
it was
standard procedure.
Pretty
at that
standard
point.
procedure, looked like it was pretty much in order. No issues. And then two or three police officers of Minneapolis moved the arrestee over to a car, and for some reason he went down. I would have thought they would put him in the car. I don't know what happened there, but while he was down, I noticed I think it's been added 8 minutes and 46 seconds. This officer kneeled on his neck, and right while that was going on, was saying, why isn't somebody intervening? That's not good. That's a dangerous situation because it could result in which subsequently the person died.
Right.
I watched a person, George Floyd, a human being that was arrested, that he was cuffed.
He was handcuffed.
He was already in custody, and I watched him talking and breathing and went to unresponsive. And that is a situation that we can't tolerate in law enforcement. I do not tolerate, our staff do not tolerate, our personnel do not tolerate, and there are a lot of law enforcement agencies across the country. I do want to add, first of all, that after that event, there was a lot of conversation, a lot of chatter going on, and a lot of people looking at law enforcement across the country, that's what happens.
Right.
Is when something happens in one area, people turn to their own local law enforcement and say, what are we doing?
Right.
And of course, when we see something like that, we also looking at what's going on there, how did that happen, trying to evaluate the situation, and then we start looking at what do we do, our policies.
Right, and
we look inward.
Maybe we do better. Right.
What are we doing that's better than that? And I think we're far ahead of it. In North Carolina, I think the sheriffs and a lot of the police departments are far ahead of the situation here. But anyway, it led to social unrest. And during the process, I talked to the Sheriff's Association, and our association put out a position statement where the North Carolina Sheriff's Association denounced what we saw on TV about how George Floyd was handled as an arrestee, and we made some additional comments, so that went out to all our sources to let the public that we serve across the great state of North Carolina, let them know where we stand on these issues, that we will not tolerate that.
Absolutely.
Then I put together a little statement myself, and I read this before the commissioners, and I've also had the opportunity to read this before the Rockingham County School Board. But I'm going to go ahead and reflect this real quick here.
Okay.
Is this regarding the death of George Floyd and the effects on the community and the nation? My statement to the community in Rockingham County and to the commissioners. As a career law enforcement officer with more than 37 years service in public safety and law enforcement, I viewed a video released Wednesday, and I was shocked at the response by these 4 Minneapolis police officers during an arrest of a suspect. I observed a living human being go from a talking mode to going unresponsive at the hands of an officer wearing a badge of public trust, a badge that I hold to the highest level of trust and respect. Every day in America, thousands of law enforcement officers at the local, state, and federal level carry out their jobs to the fullest and in the proper manner. When an inappropriate or unlawful act of a sworn officer occurs with a citizen, law enforcement officers around the U.S. can feel that impact. Mm-hmm. I encourage my deputies to always treat others how you wish to be treated. Respect has to be earned, and trust also. And trust has to be maintained. Mm-hmm. I pray for peace in Minneapolis and for all the families affected by this terrible act. And I also pray for many fine police officers serving in that city and during this time and across the United States. When an unlawful act is observed during an arrest, an officer or officers standing by that are assisting on that arrest have a lawful obligation to intervene, a moral obligation to intervene. Mm-hmm. Failing to do so is just as bad as doing the act yourself.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I will not tolerate abuse or disrespect for anyone that my deputies encounter. We serve all citizens of Rockingham County equally and fairly under the law, no exceptions.
And for the 20 plus years that I've worked for you, you've said that on more than one occasion, multiple occasions, kind of a motto that we have around here, to treat everyone equally and fairly under the law, and that we are part of the community, not apart from the community, and not to forget that.
Absolutely, so. Absolutely. You know, the local law enforcement in uniform, they're the face of government. Mm-hmm. But one reason why a lot of actions or activities have been defaulted to us, working with persons mentally ill, working with other situations in our communities, is because we're a 24/7 response organization.
And a frontline organization.
Frontline.
We're first. Yeah.
And so that's the first point of contact. And you know, we at the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office, in our mission statement, we want to make sure that we always represent as a professional, and we always consider that person we're dealing with. And remember, each and every person we deal with, we have to treat them with equality.
And I like to think that we do that here. Now, what happened to George Floyd, I have not heard any law enforcement officer that has not spoken out against that. There's really no way to condone any of that. A handcuffed man, 4 officers, that activity, that unlawful activity. As a matter of fact, most of the law enforcement officers that I have heard have made it a point to speak out against that action, you included. Mm-hmm. And I thank you for that. I agree with you 100%. As a law enforcement officer, there's no way to explain that activity as anything other than criminal. You know, and we want the communities to realize that not every law enforcement officer acts that way, not to judge the whole on the actions of a very few. Most of us get up every morning and we come to work, and we want to make the community a better place. We want to help the citizens that we serve. That's why we do it.
Well, the thing is also is you hear the word accountability. Mm-hmm. We have accountability not only to the citizens we serve, but to the organization that we work under. And we always want to make sure that we have good accountability. I've said this before, if you want to prevent situations like you saw in Minneapolis and some places around the country, is that you've got to hire the best candidates. You got to go out and hire the best candidates. And your candidates need to be representatives of the community you serve. Mm-hmm. Total picture. You got to make sure that you have good training.
Right.
Not only initial training, but in-service training. Mm-hmm. You've got to make sure that you have good policies. Mm-hmm. And you got to make sure that you have good supervision.
Right.
And within those policies, there has to be accountability. I was going to tell you, today, I will tell you that we have implemented some policies, and I have some information that a lot of people may not know, but I'll go ahead and go through this right now real quick. But I personally believe that if we're going to reform issues in law enforcement, it starts at the local level. You've heard the conversation,
Agreed.
Politics is all local.
Yes.
Well, I think that our fixes in the local setting start locally with local and state law enforcement. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you this, Kevin, and you know this, but a lot of citizens may not be aware of this, but I've had a standing order since 2006 that we do not participate, and we do not allow no-knock search warrants.
Right.
You've heard the controversy and the issues on no-knock search warrants. They're very dangerous.
Right.
And the thing is, they're not authorized to be utilized in our investigations. We do have the standard search warrants signed by a judge where you have to give knock, notice, and intention when you come. Under the law, there are exigent circumstances, emergency situations, somebody's having a medical issue or something like this, or emergency where life's in danger, where you have to force your way in.
Absolutely.
That is allowed by the law, and so we're protected under that. But anyway, today this position will be included in my written policy. My written policy will say that there will be absolutely no no-knock search warrants will be authorized for the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office. Two, since 2007, we've participated in what's called CIT. You've been there, Crisis Intervention
Training. Yes, sir.
Crisis Intervention Training, to everyone who may not be familiar with this, is training that we provided to our uniform division, our deputies that are out in uniform, patrolling the city, out around the cities and the county. The training that they receive it's a 40-hour course. It teaches them de-escalation techniques when interacting with persons during crisis, and also particularly when interacting with persons that may be mentally ill and are in crisis then. The problem that we are having is we can't get enough training in the area right now due to funding and the lack of classes that are available locally. So we need the ability. In my opinion, we need the ability to train in crisis intervention training at the academy level when persons are going through their basic law enforcement training, and we need a follow-up with in-service training.
Right.
So NAMI, the National Alliance for Mentally Ill, they're a co-sponsor of this program. It's supported by the state. Pieces of the crisis intervention training are in the Justice Academy handbook, but I think the 40-hour course needs to be taught at the basic level at the academy before persons even hit the streets.
And I know you've pushed for that for several years now.
I have.
Trying to get that included into the...
But you know, yesterday, and I will say that I don't have a copy of it yesterday, but the president's executive order is basically, he spoke to the citizens, and he spoke to our Congress and basically tasked our Congress with coming up with reform that will help. And one of the things would help if there was additional federal funding for the training, so we could train trainers in our communities, have more trainers to teach crisis intervention training for intervention when it's dealing with persons in crisis or persons that have mental illness, to de-escalate situations.
Right.
We need that training. I would like to have all my deputies trained. I've got right now probably 75% of my deputies are trained in crisis intervention training, but I'd like to have all of my deputies trained, my detention staff, my civil deputies, my bailiffs. It can help in all those areas. You can have a situation where a person's in crisis.
Right, it can do nothing but help.
So we need the funding for that, and we need more classes, and they need to be available here in North Carolina. But here's another thing. We were talking earlier about intervention, like with the George Floyd situation. Those officers were standing by, had not only a moral obligation, professional obligation, but they had an obligation to stop it.
An ethical obligation, absolutely.
An ethical obligation.
Absolutely.
Well, there's always been a moral obligation to intervene when an officer observes another officer utilizing excessive force, or when there's an escalation or tempers during the arrest of a citizen or citizen contact. Since 2016, we've utilized body cameras to document what our deputies are doing out in the field, okay? And we've expanded that through the agency and stuff like that. Not only does it protect the citizens that we serve, but it also protects the agency and also helps us to evaluate what our deputies are doing.
Right.
So the body camera program, it's very expensive. My hat's off to the Rockingham County Commissioners, our county manager, our IT department, who helped bring that to us. Now we have the ability to show our citizens at appropriate time, by law, what took place.
And there are laws that govern
And
the dissemination
different
of that.
states have different laws regarding the release of videotape.
Yes.
But we do have body cameras, and we've been doing that since 2016, which is very important. And it's very expensive, particularly with data storage.
Yeah.
Today, let me go back here. Today I'll be adding to our Rockingham County written policy regarding a duty to intervene. Let's go back to intervention. Regarding a duty to intervene and a duty to report any interventions regarding excessive use of force or violation of agency policy. So what I'm basically doing in written policy is I'm tasking every officer from the field level up, from my administration level down, if there's an observed policy violation or a person is going in the direction of use of force where he may go in the wrong direction, is you have an obligation to intervene and you have an obligation to report. So basically, we're policing our own
Right.
at the most local level.
Right.
I mean,
From the bottom to the top and the top to the bottom.
as far as transparency and accountability, we're doing it.
Yes.
So that is the third thing that I want to bring forward. I do want to say that funding for additional body cameras and data storage is costly and very important today, and will be needed for future law enforcement. Accountability and oversight starts with the local agencies, and I think that Congress can support our efforts by acquiring funding for technology and training to accomplish those goals. So I'll be talking to our congressman. I'll be talking to our state representatives. The point is we do need support, we do need funding, but I believe the fixes don't start in the congressional level. I believe it starts right here at the local level,
Right.
and we're going to do that. I do want to let you know that last week, Governor Cooper commissioned a task force on racial equity in the criminal justice system, and I told you I had applied, I made an application, and what it is, it'll be made up of chiefs, sheriffs, community leaders, and all other persons that fall within the criminal justice realm.
Right.
So it's going to be, I think it's going to be 25 members.
Okay.
And so if we are on that task force, hopefully we'll be able to have some good input, some input to help our citizens in Rockingham County and our citizens across this great state.
Right.
When there's interaction with law enforcement, where they feel safer, and also we're safer.
Right.
Okay, because right now the biggest problem that I see in North Carolina and even our county is you got to build that trust, and you got to maintain the trust.
Right.
Speaking of trust building, in 2014, President Obama, following the Ferguson riots in Ferguson, President Obama commissioned a 21st century task force on policing
Right.
for the future, and it was made up of several representatives from law enforcement, community leaders, and I don't know how many months it went, but in 2015 the report came out, and I went to Washington, and for 6 hours I received a debrief, and myself and along with other law enforcement leaders across the country received a debrief on what that task force recommendations were all about.
Right.
And there were 6 pillars that were identified. There were recommendations for community, there were recommendations for law enforcement, to where there were issues from community policing, but right here, the first pillar, and most important, is building trust and legitimacy. 2, policy and oversight.
Right.
Going back to the accountability, right?
Accountability, exactly.
Policies and accountability. Technology and social media. Not only what technology we use to help spread our message and educate the public what we're doing, but ways people can interact with us easier.
Absolutely.
Through the technology. And you worked on that for you. So, okay, so what I want to say is with some of these pillars that we're talking about, we've been able to incorporate some in the Sheriff's Office since 2015. And I would continue to push this task force, even though there's another commission task force at the state level that's going to begin,
Right.
even in Congress, is this task force recommendation has already been out for 4.5 years, and it's got a lot of good information and data that we can use to make us be better at what we do,
Right.
which is better to serve our citizens and our
Right.
communities. Community policing and crime reduction. You know, you worked in community policing, but it's not just an officer. Every officer can engage in community policing,
Right.
and the thought process. Crime reduction, we're all about that.
Oh, yes.
Okay? Training and education. I touched on that just a while ago. Training, education. And then the last thing is offering safety and wellness. A lot of times we don't mention the officers, but you know what? We have a gym facility for our deputies,
Right.
and our detention officers to work in there to maintain a certain level. We encourage healthy lifestyle, stuff like this. But, you know, officer safety and wellness, we want to make sure not only do we wear the best vest to protect our deputies out there, they have all the less than lethal equipment that they have, and besides their firearm, we want to make sure we train them, we want to make sure we protect them, and building relationships. You know, how many officers? You tell me, how many officers last year, do you know, or were shot and killed in the line of duty?
I do not know the exact number.
Well, we need to drop those numbers.
Yes.
When we get those numbers to 0,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We need to drop it because one officer is one too many. It's not only is a loss of the family and the law enforcement family, but it affects the community.
Right.
Okay, because like we said, our officers, our sworn officers who wear the badge, carry the gun, and protect our communities, they are part of the community, not apart from the community. So we need to continue to push that conversation is
Right.
we're a part of the community and we're here to serve our citizens.
And I know,
All citizens.
and I believe in my heart that 99.9% of all law enforcement officers, like I said earlier, we get up in the morning, we come to work, and we're trying to make our communities a better place. That's why we're doing what we're doing. You know, we're trying to keep the community safe. We're doing the best that we can, and so you know, that's just something to remember. You know, we wanna do it right, and we're here to help, and that's why we're doing it. That's why most of us do it in the first place.
I'm going to throw some numbers at you here. In America, I've heard estimates between 700,000 and 800,000 law enforcement officers across the country, local, state, federal. There are what, 3,080 sheriff's offices across the country in 50 states. And there are over 18,000 local and state law enforcement agencies across the United States. So there's a lot of law enforcement. But like you just said, and I want to reiterate that, there are thousands of officers every day. 99.9999%. They go out every day, do their job to the best of their ability, and protect and serve citizens.
Right.
In a professional manner that's expected, treating all people equally and fair on the law. And that's done every day. There are millions, every day there's probably
We want to go home safe. We want the community residents to go home safe every day. That's why we do what we do.
How many millions of contacts do you think there are a year that everything went fine?
Oh, I can't even,
So the thing is our goal at the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office is to look at these policies, look at some of these recommendations from the 21st Century Policing Task Force, look at some of the recommendations, implement the ones that we can work with that will help us to be better at what we do. And there are great recommendations.
Because we can always strive to be better.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we're human beings, but we can always strive to be better.
We don't want to be your average law enforcement agency. We want to be the best.
We want to be the best.
Well, I always tell everybody, we are the best law enforcement agency in the state of North Carolina. I agree.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we can always try to be better.
Exactly.
But the thing is, building that trust and maintaining that trust and reaching out to all communities means a lot, especially right now.
Right.
We care about everyone in our county. We've had a few protests, peaceful protests. I do what I do. I've done what I did in the military for years. So a person can have that, looking after those constitutional protections. I had somebody the other day, a few weeks back, I took a position on churches. We're in a COVID situation, and it was a conversation about, well, Sheriff, only so many people can attend church stuff under this executive order. 10 people. But I was seeing such a situation like people, you could have more than 10 people lined up to go to the ABC store, or you could have more than people go to a retail store, something like this. I said, but you're putting a limit on a constitutional protection, freedom of religion.
That First Amendment. That same amendment that protects your right to peacefully assemble.
Peaceful protest.
It's all in the same part.
So yes. I, as the sheriff of this county, who took an oath nearly 40 years ago, starting in the military to the present, I have not changed my position. I will uphold the Constitution. I will protect your rights, and I will see that everybody within my command does the same thing.
Right.
And we do that. So yeah, I stood firm. I appreciate the churches. There were a few preachers that issued a suit, were able to obtain an injunction, and then the week after that, the president came in and declared churches essential, operational.
Right.
And so it was good.
Right.
A few months before we got into the COVID situation, there was a conversation on the Second Amendment rights, when some issues going up in Virginia.
Right.
But I've always stood by my oath, and I've always been there to uphold it.
We take it seriously.
Well, the Constitution. Well, here's the thing. Here's what I said. The Constitution, even during a COVID-19 situation, the Constitution does not get set on the shelf.
Right.
The Constitution is there, and it doesn't go away.
There's not a pandemic clause of the Constitution.
No, it's not. It's not.
Now, we want everybody to be safe. Don't get us wrong.
Yeah,
we want
exactly.
everybody to be safe. Use good common sense, use good cleaning and mask and social distance. We're social distancing now, you and I.
I just had to bring my mask here, but here's the thing. Here's the thing is, if you choose to wear a mask, that's your choice. It's a recommendation. Social distance is a recommendation. Washing your hands is a recommendation. All these things are good recommendations, and I don't disagree with
Yes.
choice.
Exactly. Choice is
And
a
this is
staple.
and this is America.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as I sit in this position, you hear me say this all the time. As long as I sit in this position, I'm going to continue to do what I do to follow my oath, uphold the Constitution, and protect the rights of citizens I serve, and ensure that our men and women that work with me, work for me, are doing the same thing.
Right.
And that's why we talk about these policy issues. When we saw what happened, like we said, with George Floyd and other situations, recent situation in Georgia, I start looking at my policies. What are our policies here? Is there anything we need to do any different? And these 3 areas that I talked about were 3 areas that I said, you know what, we can do better on.
And they were pretty much unspoken
Well,
already,
right.
but we're just writing them down. They were policy, but they weren't written down in the policy. But
They
now
are today.
Now
today.
they are. So yeah, I mean, it was understood by everyone already. But
So here we are coming up to, near the end of June, and we're waiting to move toward phase 3.
we're in phase 2 now. We're waiting to move to phase 3. I believe the governor's supposed to make a comment about that in the coming days.
Okay.
And so we'll see how that works. But
Well, I do want to see our citizens, not only in North Carolina but across America. I do want our citizens getting back to work. I want to see the economy getting back going again.
right, because it's already, there's some businesses that won't be able to recover.
Got to say something about schools. Of course, I got to say this. I want to see us get back to football season in August. And so anyway, we'll talk about that.
And let's congratulate all the 2020
That's what I want to do.
Yes.
Let's congratulate all our 2020 graduates. And I went to the Moorhead graduation
Yeah, I
last
know you
weekend,
did,
and they
yes.
had fireworks.
Oh,
But
nice.
congratulations to all our 2020 graduates across Rockingham County, high schools being Early College.
Yeah. It's
McMichael,
kind of a weird
Rockingham,
year, but look at it like
Riesel,
this. You'll never forget it.
Eden,
Nobody
Moorhead.
ever forgets their graduation anyway, but this
No.
is definitely one that the 2020 graduates won't forget. So.
So I wish everybody the best of luck. I hope that you have a great summer. And again, like I said, if you're going to college, good luck. If you're going to work, good luck. If you're going in the military, good luck. But we appreciate you and we commend you for a job well done in that graduation.
Absolutely, you've done it, and it's well earned.
You have.
Yes.
But next year I want to see some more fireworks.
They've kind of spoiled them this year with the fireworks.
I think Moorhead has raised the bar now.
Exactly.
So now Riesel and Rockingham, Early College, all these.
And I believe that they're still planning a ceremony. I know all the schools had like a drive-by ceremony, Michael and Rockingham, but later in the year they'll have the actual ceremony for the 2020 graduates.
Absolutely.
Moorhead did theirs, I believe, at the Eden Drive-In. Is that correct?
They did.
Yes.
Let me say one thing before we close. Is I pray for our county and our citizens every day, for my deputies, for my officers, and I ask you to do the same thing. Be patient. Patience. We're part of the community, not apart from the community in law enforcement. Please have patience with us.
Again, we're only human. We're humans.
Everybody needs to respect one another. Mm-hmm. And I heard a lady say the other day is respect. First thing you have to do is respect yourself.
Right.
Before you can go out and ask people to respect you, you have to respect yourself. Mm-hmm. But respect is a big word, and trust is a big word.
It is.
And we're going to continue building that trust within all the communities we serve in Rockingham County. And I thank everybody for coming out. Kevin, I thank you for putting this together and some of the questions together today. I know we had a lot out there, but we care about Rockingham County and the citizens we serve, and we're going to continue the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office to do our best, not only to be the best agency in the county and in the state, but also we're going to continue to do our best to protect and serve our citizens across the county.
And that's why we get up and we put on the uniform every day.
Every
and come
day.
to work.
Every day.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for this month's edition of Sheriff Spotlight. Tune in again next month.
Thank you.